All right, question number 3. Jennifer operates Joe Bob's Barbecue restaurant. She specializes in beef brisket and blackberry cobbler. Her operation is very popular. The following data is taken from her last month's operation. She would like to establish labor standards for the entire year based on last month's figures because she believes that a month represents a good level of both customer service and profitability for her operation. Jennifer has an average guest check of $12 and an overall payroll cost of $8 per hour. All right, so we see here we have our operating results for Joe Bob's. We've got the number of guests served, the labor hours used for weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the total here. Okay, so let's look at our first question. Use Jennifer's last month's operating results to calculate the following productivity standards: labor cost percentage, sales per labor hour, labor dollars per guest served per labor dollar, and guest served per labor hour. All right, so again, we have our average guest check and our average wage per hour. All right, and our total sales here is, so we have our total number of guests served, which is 30,300. And if we want to know how much we did in sales, we are going to multiply that by our guest check. All right, so we could figure out what our total sales were. If we want to calculate our labor cost, we will take our labor hours used, and we're going to multiply that times our average wage per hour. All right, so again, for total sales, we took our total guest count, multiplied it by our average guest check. And for our labor costs, we took our total hours multiplied times our average wage per hour. All right, so let's look at our productivity measurements, okay? So first off is our labor cost percentage. That is our cost of labor divided by our total sales, okay? So our cost of labor divided by our total sales. And that gives us a labor cost percentage of 36.7%. Then we want to know how much sales is generated per labor hour. So in order to get that, we are going to take our sales and we're going to divide that by our labor hours, which is up here. All right, so for every hour that's worked, we generate $21.80 in revenue. Then we want to know the labor dollars per guest served. All right, so our labor dollars, which is our labor cost, divided by the number of guests served, which is the 30,300. So $4.40 goes towards each guest that comes in the building. Then our guest served per labor dollar. All right, so we have 30,300 guests divided by our labor dollars is 23 cents, and our guests served per labor hour, we will take our guests served divided by our labor hours. All right, so all of these numbers, depending on where you work, you're probably going to see labor cost a lot. You're probably going to say your sales per dollar quite a bit, depending on whether or not you are like a for-profit organization or if you're like a commissary or somewhere that just really is there for production. You might look at other labor standards, but for most of you, you're going to see the labor cost percentage and sales per hour more frequently and use those terms. But you do want to understand kind of how to get the labor dollars per guest served, the guest served per labor dollar, guest served per labor hour. All right. Okay, so in question B, Jennifer has subdivided her employees into the following categories: meat production, bakery production, salad production, service, sanitation, and management. She wants to develop a sales per hour standard for each of her labor categories. She believes this will help her develop future labor budgets based on the forecasted sales. All right, let's help Jennifer calculate this standard based on her current usage of labor hours. All right, so meat production. 25% of her labor is used for labor hours. Okay, so we will take our 25% and we're going to multiply that times our number of labor hours right up here. All right, so let's use that formula. We're going to absolute this cell because we're always going to use the same number for all of these. And we're going to copy this. All right, so we see here for meat production. So in 1 month, she uses 4,170 labor hours. Okay, if she feels like this is like she said in the beginning, she feels like this is a perfect month for her. It's a very good standard. Okay, so if I'm one of her managers, if I am in charge of the bakery team, right? If I'm in charge of the bakery team, that I know that for the full month that I have my schedule, the full 4 weeks, I have 2,502 hours that I can schedule. Okay. We're just going to do a little math here. Let's divide that by 4 because we're looking at 4 weeks, okay? So in a week, as a manager, I have 625.5 hours that I can work with to schedule my team. Now, when I look to see how many staff members I need, I'm probably going to determine, let's say that my shifts are 8 hours each, all right? So I can divide the hours that I have by 8, and I have 78 shifts that I can schedule throughout the week, okay? So when I break that down, that's 78 hour shifts. Now, if I wanted to, I would probably go ahead and divide that by 5 because most of my team members will work 5 days a week instead of 7 days a week. So it looks here like I need 15 to 16 staff members in the bakery production just to staff that area. All right, now let's look at our sales per labor hour. All right, so we have our sales here, which we will absolute, divided by our labor hours. And that'll be different for each area. So I can use this number if I'm looking at my sales forecast and I want to staff properly. I will use these metrics in order for me to make sure that I have staffed properly. But the labor hour budget is probably the most useful for you at this point. All right, so now that Jennifer's calculated her productivity standards, she would like to use them to develop a labor budget for each day next week. She's forecasted 8,000 guests, and she wants to use the guest served per labor hour as her standard that was calculated in Part A. All right, let's use this information to develop a labor hours budget for Jennifer. Okay, so we have day 1, we have 900 forecasted guests. All right, let's look at our guest served per labor hour standard. All right, our guest served per labor hour is 1.82. So if we want to forecast our hours, we'll take our number of guests served, multiply that times our guests served per labor hour, and we can go ahead. Let's copy this and insert it in the entire chart. And we can copy this formula here. So if she utilizes this method, she should have sufficient, and she uses her labor hours budget and she matches it and she schedules she schedules properly. She should be right on point with the with her service level and her productivity as well.